Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. As we have quorum present for today's meeting, I'd like to call the meeting of our Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee to order. Just a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during our committee meetings. I'm now going to go through our list of names for attendance. If I can just ask you to please turn your microphones on when it's time and acknowledge that you're present. Councillor Kretsch? We need to. Oh. I apologize. We just need to wait for a quorum, so we will put a pause on our meeting at the moment.
No. Hi, Pete. It's Matt from the.
So we currently do not have quorum. So how we will move forward is we'll move forward informally, and we will be moving to item 11.1, which is the winter 2025 McMaster student practicum presentation. So we want to welcome them for coming today to do their presentation. I would like to call upon Alyssa Golden, Cultural Heritage Program Lead, to introduce the group.
Thank you, Chair. So again, Alyssa Golden, Cultural Heritage Program Lead. Just want to thank the students from McMaster who are here today. This is the third time that we've worked with McMaster as a part of this history practicum course to partner and to provide a potential project for students to get to know the city of Hamilton and its history more, and to also assist us with doing research and information to help support future projects. Previously, the practicum students had done research related to potential Part 4 designations, previously working on Central Presbyterian and other properties, Cop Block as well. This time we had proposed that the students essentially undertake a high-level Heritage Conservation District study of an area that we already have identified as a potential heritage landscape in the city. And so they've looked at Ottawa Street North. This is an academic exercise that we're hoping will not only give us information about this landscape that we have inventoried, but is also an opportunity to test out what a potential process could be as we look to develop a larger Heritage District strategy across the city and how we undertake that work moving forward. And I want to thank on our team, Scott Dickinson and Marissa Barris, who have been the key leads with our McMaster students and working with them on a regular basis, and really excited to see the outcome of their project. And just have Scott is pulling up the presentation now, and then we'll pass it over to the students.
So good afternoon, staff and members of the Municipal Heritage Committee. Today we will be presenting our preliminary research regarding a proposal for a historical conservation district on Hamilton's Ottawa Street North. Next slide.
So just like to introduce ourselves, my name is Olivia Walker. I'm a fourth-year honors history student at McMaster, and I'm interested in pursuing a career in supply chain management. Our son over here is also a fourth-year honors history student, and he's more interested in learning more about the municipal civic process that goes on behind this project. So the opportunity for us to partake in this project was brought to us by our partnership, the city's partnership with McMaster University through our course History for HP3, which is the heritage placement. It basically focuses around serving upper year students to gain real world experience and see what we can do with our history degree.
And so moving on to the items that we will be discussing today, we're going to start with a historical context statement, basically discussing the history of the area that makes up Ottawa Street North. Then we'll be going into our experience for doing in-person fieldwork on the street. Then we'll talk about how we categorized this information and processed it first through the contributing properties that we think could make up a potential HCD designation, and then the boundary area for what this future HCD could look like within our study area. And finally, we'll just end with a statement about the heritage value of this future HCD.
So before diving into our historical context statement, I just want to state the purpose of our historical context statement is to identify the historical significance of Ottawa Street North, while also noting the historical developments and trends concerning Ottawa Street North. Though I want to put out that this is a preliminary draft, which should seek further refinement in the future.
And so going into the statement itself, so Ottawa Street North was originally part of the Barton Township, which was the eastern boundary surrounding the city of Hamilton. And during the 19th and 20th century, it was used for landfill sites and farmland that served the city. But then going into its municipal incorporation into the expanding of the city of Hamilton in 1909, the area around the street saw the introduction of a large number of manufacturing plants, which drew in both working class European immigrants as well as internal migration from surrounding rural areas in Ontario. And so due to this rising population, Ottawa Street North expanded and it saw the construction of commercial buildings meant to serve this growing population. And then corresponding to this history, we can see that in the physical character of Ottawa Street North, which largely features 20th century 1 to 3 story brick commercial buildings that have sort of a unique vernacular architectural style that can be identified through various features, including decorative parapets. The first half of the 20th century, it saw the emergence of Ottawa Street North into its modern identity as a commercial hub and the creation of multiple small businesses, which together kind of became the main street for the expanding and urbanizing east end of the city. And then simultaneously, the neighborhood also provides historical insight into the growing blue-collar working-class community in Hamilton that were both the consumers and the purveyors of this emerging area. And so this includes a largely British working class population, as well as the burgeoning of some of the first Jewish and Italian-owned businesses and enclaves in Hamilton. Next slide.
So how we went about conducting our fieldwork is that on February 7th, we surveyed Ottawa Street North by walking from the intersection of Main and Ottawa North all the way down to Ottawa North and Barton. And while we were walking down the street, we took photos of each building and noted each building's architectural style, property integrity, era of construction, the height and stories, and then we indicated which type of building it was. And then later on, we went and identified the heritage status of the buildings, and we did this by utilizing the City of Hamilton's online heritage mapping resources. From our research, we ended up noting that Ottawa Street North is comprised of 116 buildings, with a majority of the buildings on the streets being commercial buildings, while there were a few residential dwellings, such as bungalows.
And then after doing this in-person fieldwork, we used all the information we gathered to analyze it and determine how we can use it towards our HCD research designation. So the first step in this was categorizing each building regarding its level of modification from its original status as a heritage building. So to do this, we had 3 different categories that we included the buildings under. The first was preserved, which are buildings that had no signs of remodeling and possessed all of its original features. And then on top of that, we had modified buildings, which were ones that had some original features, but also had been changed some kind of way. So an example of this would be a building that had some modern windows and storefront, but showcased the original structure of the building. And then we had buildings that were compromised. So these were when modern additions of the building completely overwhelmed where the original building was, and it's hard to see the original heritage still in it. And so from using this system, we found that most buildings on Ottawa Street North were modified, with a select few being preserved. And there were also several compromised buildings as well.
So to determine the contributing properties for our HCD, we filtered each of the HCD, or 116 buildings in our study, into 3 categories: contributing A, contributing B, and non-contributing. For a property to be contributing A, the property needed to be representative of the area and had to be important in defining and contributing to the character of the area. Whereas contributing B, it would only really have to be representative and support the character of the area, whereas non-contributing would not contribute to the character at all. We can see the examples there. For 333 Ottawa Street North, we deemed contributing A. 326 Ottawa Street North, we determined to be contributing B. And 256 Ottawa Street North, we deemed non-contributing.
And then using all of this information, we determined an outline boundary area for the street. So the boundary area that's in the red outline over there includes the street starting from Ottawa at Dunsmuir on the east side and Ottawa at Roxborough on the west side, both ending at Ottawa at Barton. So the only section of Ottawa Street North that are included from this boundary area is Ottawa at Dunsmuir to Main and Ottawa at Roxborough to Main on the west side. And so the Memorial School and car restaurant are also heritage designation buildings that could be included for their own individual designations, but they're excluded from this area, given they don't fit what we see for the boundary area in terms of being a commercial hub for the city, and that kind of rationale for making it an HCD designation. But yeah, in total, there is 104 buildings that are included into this proposed heritage conservation district out of the 116 that we originally studied.
So for our HCD boundary, the Ontario Heritage Designation 906 outlines the requirements for buildings in order to make up the HCD. There's 9 criteria in this designation outline, but for within the boundary, 25% of the properties must meet 2 or more of the criteria. So we decided to focus on criteria 1, 7, and 8. For criteria 1, it mainly focused on properties having certain design value and physical value, and we found 36 properties to be representative of the character of the area through their use of Edwardian style and commercial buildings and Art Deco landmarks. For regulation 7, the properties have contextual value because they define or maintain the character of the district. We found about 79 properties were determined to maintain and support the characteristic of Ottawa Street North as a commercial hub. And lastly, for regulation 8, we found for contextual value because they are linked together, whether it be visually or historically. We found 79 properties to be linked together. Most buildings are physically linked together or visually linked together through elements of decor and also historically through their history as serving as a commercial district in the East End of Hamilton.
And so to conclude, the boundary area that we outlined, it indicates a high concentration of what we mentioned as being 1 to 3 story commercial buildings that make Ottawa Street North a notable site for the city's heritage. And we think it would make an ideal section of the street for a proposed heritage conservation district, given this cultural heritage value that it could add to the city. So thank you for viewing our presentation today.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. Take care.
That was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much for all that work. That is an incredible amount of work, and you guys should be proud of what your class has been able to do. And thank you for making that presentation today. Do we have any questions for? No comments? No questions?
Big comment.
Come on, Graham. Yeah.
Yes, I always do. Okay, I'd like to personally thank you guys for the great job you did, because it's important that we have our youth involved in the preservation of the heritage of the city. Everyone else seems to be gray-haired like myself, and we want more people to understand that our past is also our future, and we have to really get to know what came before we make decisions of where we're going to go in the future. And if we can preserve this heritage conservation district, that would be fantastic. And your efforts will be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Alyssa, did you want to make a comment?
Through the chair, I just wanted to thank the students again, and I know that we'll also be attending their final presentation at McMaster and look forward to receiving the final report, which is still underway. Just curious whether you folks have any reflections in terms of takeaways from this project and what you might have found valuable or interesting throughout it?
I mean, for me personally, I found valuable like the process of utilizing like project management skills to go about tackling a project like this. Also, I would like to thank Scott and Marissa for the resources that they were able to provide us, the very helpful feedback and pathways that we could explore.
Yeah, I would just like echo what Olivia said. Next week, we're doing our presentation for like our course, which will be like in front of our professors and such. And so I think in that we're going to go a little bit more detailed into like our overall experience on top of like the research that we did. But just like our reflections right now, I would like, yeah, definitely agree. Scott and Marissa provided us a lot of like mentorship, and I think we learned a lot of new skills regarding research, not like in an academic or university environment, but like the practical sense of, especially the fieldwork experience of going in person and taking photos of each building. Something that we hadn't really thought about regarding like real world history and the history that exists kind of around us in the city.
Andy first, and then go ahead.
Through the chair. Excellent presentation, guys. Very good. Just a quick question. I was just curious on a project like this. How long would it have taken you? Was this months or a year or
We started at the end of January, and we still have yet to finalize our final report. So from January to April pretty much was the scope of our project.
So through the chair, so 3-4 months then you think?
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellent job though, guys. Thanks. That's all I have.
Sorry, through the chair, can I just add something to that? The work plan that we provided for them as well was based around like the course structure, which is about 8 to 10 hours of work a week. So that timeline in combined with, that's kind of the estimate of amount of time per week that they're intended to spend.
Go ahead, Greg.
Just out of curiosity, is this presentation open to the members of the Heritage Committee as well to come witness?
Through the chair, that's a very good question. We can take that back. Scott's been the main liaison with the professor. I know that generally it's a limited space in terms of the room, but we can inquire to see what's possible in terms of additional attendees.
Any other thoughts or comments? All right. So we can officially receive today. Can we do property updates generally? So again, thank you for the presentation. So what we're going to do, because again, we're moving forward informally, would anyone have any updates on their properties of interest? We can talk about it. Yeah.
I'm sure if that was on the, can't go on the agenda without adding.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. So I think Andy's referring to potentially adding something to the watch list. So I don't think that's possible right now. I think it would just be discussing ones that are already on because you can't receive and vote on adding it. But you could speak, but you can speak to it without doing that, I guess.
Like if it's better, I can just wait till next meeting and then do it then, or I can talk about it now and then, but then I'd have to do the same thing again if we're going to vote on it. So I don't know if it's worth it, but.
Yeah, fine. We're kind of curious.
So.
You can't just leave us hanging for a month there.
Yeah, we're all here, I guess. All right, I'll just speak what I was going to say, and then I can repeat it next meeting if needed. Anyway, I was looking at, I drive by this property every day pretty well, and it's 265 Mill Street South in Waterdown. Yeah, there's a couple of recent pictures. These pictures were taken from the street, just zoomed in a bit. And it's the Brayborn House, and it was 1846. I know staff has been working very hard to get this property designated, and I believe it's actually official now. I know the Montessori school owns it now, and they were 100% behind the designation, which is great when you have an owner which is wants to preserve the building. And my understanding is that they want to actually restore the building and use it as the school. But my concern, and to add it to the list, if staff feels it appropriate, is there's no protection on this property whatsoever. It sits on 5 acres of land right at the corner of Mountain Brow and Mill Street. And Waterdown Road, that intersection right there. Without any fencing around it, and I don't know if you can see, if you zoom in, you don't need to though, but there was graffiti on the building, but the graffiti was on the plywood, so we lucked out there that it wasn't on the stone. And due diligence on, I assume, the owner that has painted over it, because you can see the paint, the gray paint that they painted over. So I know that there's a process that the city's been going through, working very hard with the owner to move things forward. But I didn't know if it was appropriate to put it on the list just to keep an eye on it for potential vandalism, spray paint, just because there's no protection whatsoever. The 5 acres is wide open to the street on all sides. So that's what I was going to say. Thanks.
Thanks, through the chair. Yes, so a few updates. I know we've chatted about this property in the past as well and spoken to the fact that municipal law enforcement are actively monitoring it because it is vacant. But from staff, just some updates from staff. So the designation process is now complete. The bylaw has been registered on title. Now that that has been completed, if there are further property standards issues related to designated properties, we can now use those provisions under our property standards bylaw. Staff have been in touch with the owner and their agent in terms of, from what we understand, there will be an application coming forward soon. The zoning approval had taken place, but we were in a state of waiting for the site plan application to come in for that next step. And as I think we might have talked about when Scott presented the recommendation to designate, we were originally waiting for that to happen, but because it had not happened, when we reprioritized following Bill 23, it was put on the high priority list, and that's why we moved forward with designation before. So that being said, we understand that there is an application sort of imminently coming for that, and we look forward to reviewing that. And in the meantime, in addition to it being regularly monitored by municipal law enforcement, we also understand that our colleagues in MLE have been coordinating with the owner themselves and their own proactive monitoring in terms of grass cutting. So they're coordinating all of that on their end as well. So although there is regular eyes on it, obviously it being sort of in a secluded area can be challenging, but yeah.
Through the chair. So is this, in your estimation, like through staff, is it worth putting on the list, or is there enough going on that you don't need to?
Through the chair, so it is up to your folks' discretion. In terms of your categories of your watch list, this would certainly fit into the category of it currently being vacant, and the future state of redevelopment is unknown at this point because there isn't an active application. So it would be quite reasonable to add it to the watch list depending on which category you wanted to place it under.
Okay, thanks through the chair. So I can bring it up next meeting then to vote on, to put it on the list. Okay, I'll do that then. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Go ahead, Graham.
And if I remember correctly, this has come through the Heritage Permit Review Subcommittee for a permit not last year, the year before.
Through the chair, no. So we only just recently went through the designation process, so there wouldn't have been a permit. Possibly you're recalling there was the Heritage Impact Assessment that was submitted as a part of the previous zoning bylaw amendment application. That would have been reviewed by the Policy and Design Working Group. And that was the basis for the recommendation to designate, taking into account what the proposed plans are for adaptive reuse of the building.
Okay, are there any other properties anyone wanted just to provide an update on? Seeing none. Are there any just general updates or new business comments? Alyssa?
Through the chair, I just wanted to formally introduce Kira Cook, our new planning technician. I had indicated that she was starting last meeting, and she is now with us, and we are happy to have her. Also wanted to indicate that we are moving forward with the next phase of the Melville Heritage Conservation District project. So we're now in the plan phase, and we have an open house coming up on April 8th with property owners and residents in the area to kick off that phase of that project. So just wanted to bring that to folks' attention, and more information can be found at hamilton.ca/melvillehcd.
Thank you for that update, and welcome to the team, Karen. Any other updates? If not, we'll look to adjourn our meeting.
Can adjourn because
I know, just. So we'll just looking forward to our next meeting, unless otherwise scheduled. It would be Friday, April 25th at noon. All right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll look forward to the next meeting.